2, the identity pulse. 3 times a day, morning, midday, and night, pause and ask, what would the man I'm becoming do right now? Then do it. Immediately. This trains your nervous system to act from identity, not emotion. You're no longer asking, how do I feel? You're commanding, act in alignment. 3, the end of day integrity report. Before bed, take 60 seconds and ask yourself, did I obey emotion or did I obey identity today? Be honest. If you obeyed emotion, acknowledge it and declare that tomorrow will be different. If you obeyed identity, celebrate it, because every act of discipline is a brick in the fortress of your new self. Now let's anchor this with a few spoken declarations. Say them aloud, say them slowly. Let them carve new pathways in your mind. I am the type of person who finishes what he starts. I am the type of person who does not negotiate with emotion. I act before I feel like it. My future obeys my discipline, not my doubt. These are not lines for motivation. These are codes of conduct. Recite them daily, not to feel better, but to become better, because repetition is how a soldier is trained. And you, my friend, are in a war against the version of you that flinches, that waits, that obeys comfort. Every act of discipline is a strike against that old king. And every time you obey it, you build the throne of the new one. So ask yourself this. In the next 24 hours, when doubt whispers, when emotion says, not today, will you wait to feel right? Or will you act because it's already right? That choice, made in silence, repeated in stillness, is what separates the powerful from the passive. It is what separates men who wish for freedom from men who walk in it. You have made your decision. Now act like it. Most men walk through life believing that something is wrong with them. They believe they were born lazy or unmotivated or unfocused or inconsistent. They believe the discipline they see in others is something those men were given. And so they conclude, I'm just not wired that way. But hear this now, and then let it burn through every lie you've ever accepted. You are not broken. You are untrained. There is nothing wrong with your drive. There is nothing wrong with your mind. There is nothing wrong with your ambition. You have simply never been shown how to direct it. You've been given inspiration, but not instruction. You've been told to believe in yourself, but never told how to install belief into your system. You've been fed motivation that fades instead of rituals that rewire. Let me explain. The mind is like a wild horse, powerful, fast, full of energy, but left untamed, it runs in circles. It kicks at shadows. It destroys the very ground it walks on. Your thoughts, when untrained, will run you into exhaustion. Not because you lack power, but because power without direction is destruction. Think about the average day for most men. They wake up, and their first thoughts are not of purpose. They're of problems. They don't train the mind in the morning. They feed it noise, comparison, anxiety, distraction, and then they wonder why their day feels like a fog. The truth is simple. You cannot live a powerful life on untrained thoughts. So how do we train them? How do we begin the process of going from scattered to sculpted, from reactive to ruthless in focus? It begins with one decision. I will no longer treat my mind like a stranger. I will command it as its rightful master. Once that decision is made, everything changes, because you no longer allow randomness to govern your thoughts. You begin to train. And the first step of that training is this. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start asking, what system am I missing? Because it's not a flaw in your character. It's a gap in your structure. Let me give you a story. Charles Schwab, long before he was the Titan of Steel, was a man with no title, no authority, but he had something most did not: personal training, internal command. Carnegie didn't promote Schwab because of his resume. He promoted him because of his presence, because Schwab had trained himself to walk into rooms with energy, to speak with conviction, to take on more responsibility than was expected. Schwab didn't wait to be chosen. He acted as if he already belonged at the top. That wasn't talent. That wasn't luck. That was identity, rehearsed, refined, and trained. And now that is your path too. No more trying to figure it out. No more waiting to feel ready. You begin the training starting today. And here's how. First, daily self-command. Every morning you must begin with this ritual. Stand, speak, declare. My mind obeys me. I do not obey fear. I do not obey delay. I do not obey comfort. Repeat that until your system wakes up and begins to understand you are not here to follow your thoughts. You are here to lead them. 2. Install a power phrase. Create one sentence that defines the man you are becoming. Say it every time hesitation shows up. Example, I'm the type of person who executes under pressure. Or, I am decisive. I move before doubt takes root. Repeat it during your workouts, during your commute, before every important task. This becomes your mental anchor, your override switch. Third, daily identity task. Each day, assign yourself one task that only the man you're becoming would complete. Something small, but targeted. This is not about volume. This is about alignment. One example, send the email you've been avoiding. Wake up 30 minutes earlier. Speak publicly about your goal. Record a video. Make the call. Say the thing. The task itself doesn't matter. What matters is this. You acted as the new identity, and with each act, the old version of you begins to die. Now let's install a few affirmations and say them aloud. Don't just read. Declare. I am not broken. I am building. I am not lazy. I am untrained, and I'm training daily. I do not ask for focus, I create it. My mind obeys command, not chaos. Let those phrases become your weaponry, because repetition creates identity, and identity creates reality. So let's end with this. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not defective. You are simply standing at the threshold of training. You are ready. And the system you build, the rituals, the commands, the repetitions, will become the foundation of your freedom. Say it one more time. I am not broken. I am training my power. Each repetition is building the man I was meant to be. I act now. I repeat daily. And I become unstoppable. You're not lost. You're becoming. There is a voice inside your mind. It speaks often. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it shouts. Sometimes it says nothing. But you feel its presence, like a pressure in your chest, a tightness in your breath. You hear it when you hesitate. You hear it when you delay. You hear it when you imagine success. And something inside you says, you? Really? That voice has shaped more of your life than you care to admit. But let me tell you a truth that most never discover. That voice in your head is not always yours. It may sound like you. It may echo through your thoughts like a familiar friend. But often, that voice was planted. Planted by a parent who told you not to dream too big. Planted by a teacher who told you to play it safe. Planted by a moment of failure, repeated so many times it became your identity. It is a borrowed belief, passed to you like a script, installed without permission, rehearsed until it felt real. But real and true are not the same. And now, it's time to return it. Because if you do not challenge that voice, you will obey it. If you do not question that voice, you will follow it. If you do not replace that voice, you will become it and never become anything else. Let me give you an example. I interviewed hundreds of the most powerful men of his time. And one thing became clear. Whether it was Carnegie, Ford, Edison, or Schwab, they all heard doubt. They all felt resistance. But they disobeyed the voice. Not because they were fearless, but because they chose which voice to obey. Henry Ford once said, "If you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right." What he meant was this: your life follows the voice you believe. So I ask you now, and I want you to answer with ruthless honesty, whose voice have I been living by? Is it your father's disappointment? Is it your mother's fear? Is it the voice of a teacher, a failure, an ex-lover, a rejection that wrapped itself around your future? And if it is, let's make something clear. You do not owe that voice your destiny. You are not required to carry the tone of your past into the rhythm of your future. You do not need to rehearse an identity just because you've worn it for years. You may not be responsible for how that voice got there, but you are responsible for whether or not it stays. So let's make this real. Let's do the work. Take out a journal, a page, anything, and write this. The voice I obey most often says, then finish the sentence. Be raw. Be unfiltered. Does it say, I'll never make it? I don't have what it takes? I always mess it up. I'm not like them. Write it down. Look it in the face. Now, underneath it, write, this voice is not mine. I no longer follow it. Burn it, rip it, destroy it. Not for drama, but for declaration. And this is ritual. This is how you signal to the subconscious. We no longer take orders from weakness. Now install a new voice. Craft a sentence that begins like this. I am the man who, and finish it. I am the man who decides with clarity. I am the man who acts before emotion. I am the man who finishes what he starts. Say it aloud. Say it again. Then write it on your wall. Then record it and play it back. Repeat it until your nervous system begins to obey. Because remember this, the subconscious does not care what is true. It cares what is repeated. So if you want a new identity, you must give it a new voice, daily. Let's make this even more practical. Here are 2 powerful techniques to rewire the voice in your mind. 1. The voice override. Every time you catch a thought that does not belong to your future, say this out loud. That's not my voice. I don't follow that anymore. This interrupts the pattern. It cuts the script. It creates a moment of power. Most men never override the voice. They argue with it. You don't argue. You replace. 2, the rehearsal ritual. Each morning, spend 3 minutes speaking the identity you're becoming. This is not a pep talk. This is a mental training session. Say, I am the type of person who follows through. I am the type of person who speaks with authority. I am the type of person who creates discipline, even when I don't feel it. I am the type of person who wins because I've decided to. Speak with tone, with fire, with absolute belief, because every time you do, the old voice loses ground. Let's anchor this now with a few more affirmations. Say them aloud, like they belong to you. I no longer obey doubt. I command belief. I reject the voices of my past. I speak my future into existence. I am not who I used to be. I am who I choose to become daily. My thoughts obey me. My voice leads me. My future follows me. Say them every day. Because the man who speaks his identity long enough begins to believe it. And the man who believes it becomes it. You are not a prisoner of your thoughts. You are not stuck with the script you inherited. You are the author. You hold the pen. And with each repetition, each declaration, you write a new life. You write a voice so powerful, so rooted, so trained, that doubt no longer recognizes your mind as its home. From this day forward, say it clearly. That voice was never mine. I no longer follow it. I speak with the voice of who I am becoming. And with that voice, you will shut doubt down. Doubt is not a curse exclusive to the weak. Doubt does not visit only the lost, the broken, or the uncertain. Doubt, the internal whisper of what if I fail, has visited every great man you admire. The difference is this. The greats did not live with doubt. They answered it. They did not argue. They did not apologize. They did not explain. They simply refused to let doubt become their director. They understood one timeless principle. Doubt is not a sign to stop. It is a signal to decide. Let's study them now, not as untouchable legends, but as men who heard the same lies you do and silenced them with decision. 1, Henry Ford. Produce it anyway. When Henry Ford set out to build the Model T and revolutionize transportation, he didn't have the credentials. He didn't have mass approval. He didn't even have agreement from his own engineers. They told him it couldn't be done. They said his dream of an affordable car for every working man was unrealistic. They doubted the idea of an 8-cylinder engine in a single block. They told him, this design is impossible. Ford said just 6 words in return: keep working, produce it anyway. And those 6 words built an empire. He didn't argue with doubt. He didn't try to debate the limitations. He didn't ask for reassurance. He gave the order, and doubt, no matter how loud it was, had no choice but to obey. This is what you must learn. Doubt is not defeated by logic. It is silenced by command. 2. Abraham Lincoln. This is the burden I must carry. Lincoln did not look the part of a leader. He was awkward, melancholic, laughed at for his appearance, attacked for his decisions. He led a nation divided and bleeding. At every turn, he was told he was unfit. Can you imagine the pressure of knowing that every word you say could tear your country further apart? The doubt he faced wasn't just internal, it was national. And yet he said this: I am nothing, but truth is everything. He never claimed to be the perfect man. He never pretended to be without fear. But he stood firm in purpose, and that's what made him powerful. He allowed doubt to exist in the room, but he did not let it sit in the chair of command. He bore the burden and still chose to lead. 3. Thomas Edison. I did not fail. The man failed over 10,000 times trying to invent the light bulb. 10,000. That's not exaggeration, that's recorded truth. He was mocked in newspapers, dismissed by scientists. They called him delusional. When asked why he hadn't given up, Edison simply replied, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That is not just optimism. That is identity. That is a man who trained his subconscious to see attempts as progress, not proof of inadequacy. You see, doubt says, maybe you're not cut out for this. But belief answers, I will become what is required, no matter how long it takes. Edison's success was not a product of genius. It was a product of repetition in the face of doubt. 4. Andrew Carnegie. Surround yourself with belief, not noise. Carnegie was born into poverty. Immigrant, no formal education. Worked in a cotton factory at the age of 13. Yet he became the wealthiest man of his time, and a mentor to millions through his philosophy of wealth and contribution. How? He trained his environment. He surrounded himself with men who believed bigger. He built a mastermind, a brotherhood of thinkers, leaders, and visionaries who would challenge his doubt into silence. He once said, you cannot push the mind to grow while surrounding it with those who pull it back. Carnegie didn't pretend doubt never came. He just never let it echo in empty rooms. He knew the trick. Let others speak faith into your future. Louder than doubt speaks failure into your past. What do these men teach us? They were not superhuman. They were not immune to fear. They were not blessed with confidence every day. They simply practiced a pattern. They heard doubt, and they answered it. And that answer came in the form of action, repetition, and belief. Now it's your turn. Here's your practice. Write down one thing you've delayed because of doubt. It could be a conversation, a business, a habit, a risk, and a decision. Name it. Then ask yourself, what would Ford do? What would Lincoln say? How would Edison move? Who would Carnegie call? This is not a mental game. This is mental modeling. These men are not statues to admire. They are systems to imitate. Because what they did was not magical. It was mechanical. You can do the same. Let's finish with declarations, the kind that forge armor inside your nervous system. Say these now with force. I am the type of person who acts despite doubt. I follow command, not emotion. My future speaks louder than fear. I rewrite doubt with daily repetition. I am not broken. I am becoming. I decide. I declare. I dominate. Now take a breath. Let them settle. Let the voice of your future self rise louder than the whisper of your hesitation. Because if Ford, Edison, Lincoln, and Carnegie could rise with no more certainty than you have now, then you have no excuse left but action. The formula has been shown. The path is proven. And now the only question left is this. Will you obey the voice of doubt or the command of destiny? There is a voice in your head that has lived there for years. It doesn't scream, it whispers, it doesn't shout, it suggests. And because it whispers just low enough to sound like your own thoughts, you've listened to it, you've obeyed it, you've mistaken it for you. This voice says things like, play it safe. Later might be better. Don't embarrass yourself. What if it doesn't work? You've heard it while sitting still, while pacing, while scrolling, while lying awake in bed wondering what more you were meant for. And yet, every time you've gotten close to rising, that voice has tugged at your ankle with just enough pull to keep you ordinary. Let us now expose that voice for what it is, a liar. It was never telling you the truth. It was protecting its territory because that voice is not you. That voice is the version of you who fears change, the one who found comfort in confusion, who found identity in indecision, who found safety in staying the same. And if you want to live your vision, you must silence that voice, not by arguing with it, but by disobeying it. Because here is the truth. Doubt is not something you defeat in a single battle. Doubt is a whisper you must outspeak daily, a shadow you must outshine, a thought you must outrun, not with speed, but with decisiveness. When you were born, you didn't know how to doubt. You didn't know how to hold back. You screamed when you needed something. You moved toward whatever caught your eye. You reached. You fell. You reached again. That was you before the world taught you fear. Before you were handed the script, before they told you, be realistic, before they laughed at your ambition, before they modeled hesitation and passed it down as maturity. You are not trying to become something new. You are returning to what you were before the world got to you. Let me say that again. You are not broken. You are buried. And now it's time to rise. The voice of doubt dies through repetition of identity. This is why men like Ford and Carnegie were so powerful. They didn't repeat outcomes. They repeated beliefs. Beliefs that aligned with who they were becoming, not who they had been. So here is what we do now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now, 1, establish a command phrase. The subconscious mind cannot differentiate between truth and repetition. It only knows what is said often enough to matter. So we build a phrase, short, sharp, emotional, and we speak it aloud every single day. Something like, I am the type of person who acts in power. Or, I follow command, not comfort. Or, I am decisive, I am focused, I am unshakable. Make it yours, make it sacred, and say it louder than the doubt. This is not for motivation, this is for installation. 2, create a victory trigger. Every time you take action that once brought fear, even small action, reward it. Why? Because the brain is wired to reinforce whatever is repeated with emotion. You go exercise when you didn't feel like it? Stand taller, clap your hands, speak the phrase. You made the uncomfortable thing? Smile with pride. Write a line in your journal. Today I proved who I am. You silence the voice of maybe later. Say this aloud. That voice no longer leads me. These micro rewards compound. And soon, the brain associates action with identity, and fear becomes weaker in its presence. 3, replace the input. Many men try to change their lives without changing their environment, and then wonder why they keep returning to doubt. But understand this. What you feed your eyes and ears is what you install in your mind. Every podcast, every book, every conversation, every video. Ask yourself this now. Do my inputs make me bold or quiet? Do they sharpen me or soften me?